My name is Evelyn Tran, and I'm 56 years old. I've learned that people like their tragedies tidy an illness with a name, a family with a plan, a link to click that promises salvation. Real life is messier. It has pill bottles that don't line up by height, insurance portals that time out when you're 3 digits into your policy number, and a heart that races for reasons no cardiologist can chart. I didn't want to be anyone's story. And then, without asking me, someone wrote one in my name. The link arrived on a Sunday, tucked inside a neighbor's message between a casserole recipe and a weather alert. Saw this? Praying for your surgery. Sharing widely. I tapped, and the page bloomed to life in the small rectangle of my phone. My face, last year's DMV photo, the one where the lighting forgives no one, sat beneath a headline in cheerful font, "Help Mom Get Through Surgery." A progress bar glowed like a thermometer, filling itself by the minute. Notes from strangers stacked below for Mom's healing. For the brave matriarch. A child's drawing had been uploaded. Stick figures under a too big sun. And for a moment I didn't know if I wanted to cry or apologize to the world for being drafted into its sympathy. The copy read as if I were already on an operating table. Our mom needs urgent surgery and support with recovery costs. Anything helps. There was a paragraph about resilience. About the way, always put others first. And a sentence that did not belong to me at all. She raised 3 kids alone. I raised one. It was an error, or a liberty. Or both. What's the word for something that's wrong in the direction of profit? I toggled to my banking app like a person checking for a pulse. If there was a fundraiser, for Mom, and I was the mother in the photograph, there should be a sign. An incoming transfer, a pending verification. Any breadcrumb of good fortune. My balances were stubbornly ordinary. No deposits, no messages. Just the stark honesty of zeros arranged the way they've learned to live. Back on the fundraiser, the totals climbed. $20 from a Sunday school teacher I hadn't seen since Christmas. $50 from a cousin I'd held at his christening and barely since. $150 from a username that looked like a wish. A comment from a woman I didn't know. We beat cancer in our house last year. You will too, Mama. I wanted to tell her that the biopsy was next month and the word cancer hadn't been awarded yet. Instead, I watched the bar continue its red ascent, stunned by how quickly a narrative could outrun the truth. I clicked see more to find the organizer. The name blinked up at me with the shock of a room's light flipped on Jasmine Vo, organizer, my sister's daughter. My niece, no call, no text, no, "Oh, Auntie, is this okay?" Just my image, her copy, and the internet's kindness poured into a cup I could not touch. I scrolled further, past the photos she'd chosen. Me holding a paper cup of green hospital gelatin like a trophy, me in a scarf I'd worn to keep the wind from my ears, now serving to suggest chemotherapy. There was an update posted at dawn. Mom is staying strong. We're hopeful the hospital will schedule quickly. The comments fused into prayer beads. The total ticked higher. It all happened so fast I could hear it. The soft ping of someone else's generosity landing in a place I could not account for. I called Jasmine. Straight to voicemail. I tried her mother, my sister, who said she was running errands. In the way people use errand as a noun large enough to hide behind. It's probably to help, my sister added. You know how the kids are with the internet. Help, in my vocabulary, had always come wearing a name and a return address. Help had a hand to squeeze, a casserole warm enough to cradle on your lap. Help did not require my face to be borrowed and my illness to be narratively convenient. I refreshed my banking app again, as if belief could summon evidence. Nothing. I wrote to the fundraiser support address and got the kind of auto reply that uses your first name like a bandage. Hi Evelyn, thanks for reaching out. Please note that organizers can set up disbursements to the account of their choice. If you believe this campaign misrepresents you or your situation, reply with documentation. Documentation, a word I'd come to trust more than people. I stared at my photo, flat lighting, honest lines, and understood that whatever lived behind the story did not include me. Money was moving, my accounts were not, and the person holding the ladder while strangers climbed with their wallets was family. Charity without transparency has another name. I felt it rise in me like fever, the old ache being used dressed up as love. Somewhere, kindness was happening in my name. Here, in my hands, there was only a phone and a page that did not belong to me. I called Jasmine with my pillbox open on the counter, Monday's square blinking up like a polite accusation. She picked up on the fourth ring, breathless, like I'd caught her sprinting toward an excuse. "Auntie, hey. I was just about to call you," she said, the universal overture to a conversation already detoured. "The money's pending." The word pending slid between us, glossy as a brochure. "Pending where?" I asked as gently as I could. "To whom?" "To you, of course," she said too fast. "It just takes time. There's a verification thing with the platform, and then the processor, and then the bank. There are steps." I leaned against the sink, the stainless steel cool through my robe. "Then I'll need to see the steps," I said. "Forward me the disbursement confirmation, or add me as a beneficiary. A copy of any emails would help." Silence. The kind that swells when someone is framing a patient tone. "Auntie, you don't understand the process," Jasmine said, higher now, brittle around the edges. "It's complicated. I'm doing updates, answering comments, and trying to keep track of everything. It's a lot." "I'm sure it is," I said, and I meant it, and also didn't. "That's why we'll be careful together. Bank statements, screenshots, whatever you have. I need to reconcile what's been raised with what's been spent. People are giving in my name." She exhaled into the phone, a sharp wind through a narrow place. "Can you trust me for, 5 minutes? Everyone's saying how inspired they are. You're making it weird. Making it weird." I could feel my sister's vocabulary in her mouth hand me down phrases for when facts arrive uninvited. I pictured Jasmine at her laptop, the glow of strangers' kindness on her cheekbones, the dopamine hum of little red hearts, the progress bar as a kind of applause. Maybe it was intoxicating. Maybe it was useful. Maybe both are true and only one is honest. "Ring me proof," I said. "I'm not asking for a fight. I'm asking for a ledger." Her voice snapped. "I can't deal with this right now. The funds are pending. I'll let you know when it clears." Then the line went flat, the modern equivalent of a slammed door. Clean, efficient, and impossible to mishear. I set the phone down beside the pillbox and stared at the two of them, side by side. Medicine and a device that could have been medicine once. Connection antidote to isolation. Now a delivery system for something else entirely. The kettle began its low moan. My inbox chimed. The subject line wore the platform's logo in miniature update on your reported campaign. My finger hesitated over the glass. Inside was the tone of an apology wrapped in customer service. "Hi Evelyn, thanks for contacting us. According to our records, disbursement for the campaign, Help Mom Get Through Surgery, was initiated 3 days ago and completed today to the verified recipient. If you believe you should be the beneficiary, please reply with documentation, ID, medical invoices, bank details. Initiated. Completed. To the verified recipient." I read it twice, the way you stand up after a fall and check if the ground is still the ground. I forwarded it to Jasmine with a note that did not shake. "Please send me the bank details for the recipient account and all disbursement confirmations by end of day. People are giving for my care. We owe them accuracy." Her reply did not come. What arrived instead was a fresh wave of donations, the little thermometer filling again, comments braided with prayer hands and heart emojis, a digital vigil that did not need my presence to proceed. Somewhere, money had moved. Now I had a paper trail that said so. The tea kettle whistled itself hoarse. I turned off the flame and let the quiet return piece by piece clock tick. Neighborhood dog, a leaf skittering along the walk. I printed the email and slid it beneath the magnet that holds appointment cards and grocery lists. The household altar where truth can be tacked up for viewing. Someone once told me reassurance is a kind of weather. It feels good while it lasts and tells you nothing about the forecast. Paper, though. Paper remembers. It carries dates and times and the names of who held the rope and when they let go. The story I had not written in my name was now writing itself in ink, and the ink had a destination that wasn't me. Banks smell like paper and worry. The carpet hushes your steps as if sound itself needed an appointment. At the counter, a pen dangled from a silver chain like a domesticated thing. I took a number and watched it hopscotch across the screen until a teller named Marco called me, by the name on my license and not the one on the fundraiser. "I need the last 3 months of incoming deposits," I said, palms flat on the cool laminate. "HEH credits. Wires. Anything that looks like a payout from a crowdfunding platform." He nodded without surprise. The benefit of working in a place where people come to prove what they already fear. "We can print an activity report and the ACH addenda," he said. You'll see originator names. The printer coughed out pages that felt heavier than their weight. I slid into a small chair near the potted ficus and began at the top, eyes skimming like a woman searching a shoreline for a ring she knows she lost there. There were the familiar trickles, a pharmacy refund for $12 and change, Medicare's dry little acknowledgments, a 40 birthday transfer from a friend who still writes memo lines like postcards. What was missing was louder than what was present. No deposits labeled with the platform's name. No payment processor breadcrumbs. No stripes or squares or anything that sounded like help arriving in orderly letters. Halfway down page 2, a different pattern. Zella et Jasmine V $25. A week later another 17 memo gas. Then 10 with a heart emoji my bank translated into a hollow little square. I stared at the line items, trying to will them into benevolence. Small kindnesses masquerading as proof. Token amounts that felt like cough drops passed to a person holding their own lungs. Do you need me to highlight anything? Marco asked, hovering the way tellers learned to. Near enough to be useful, not so near as to crowd your grief. I'm okay, I said the way people say it when they are not. Back home. I laid the statements under the magnet that keeps appointment cards in line. The fundraiser's thermometer had climbed again while I was out, fat with other people's good intentions. I opened my email to find 2 new messages waiting like twin verdicts. The first was from the platform's trust and safety team. Subject line gentle as a pat requested details about disbursement. Hi Evelyn, it began, we understand your concern. For privacy, we can confirm only that funds were dispersed to the verified recipient account attached to the campaign. See attached redacted screenshot. I clicked. The image showed a dashboard I had not been invited to payout completed. Beneath it, a name that belonged to my family and not to me, Jasmine V, and a bank account masked to its last 4 digits. The second email was forwarded by a donor who had found my address through the church. I thought you should see this, she wrote. It was an organizer update from the campaign, a cropped photo of the same dashboard, the caption buoyant, we did it. Funds moved? Surgery next? The little rocket ship emoji made a cheerful mockery of my breath. No deposits from the platform to me. Small, inexplicable credits from my niece to suggest motion. And now, a picture of the destination. The money stepping neatly into an account with her initials. It is an odd sensation to feel fury and pity tug at you like children in opposite directions. I could imagine the seduction of it, notifications chiming like applause. Strangers volunteering love in denominations, the progress bar filling as if you'd finally done something right. I could also name its cost. I stacked the statements, slid the screenshot on top as if layering transparencies might make the truth bolder. Paper doesn't soothe. It doesn't flatter. It does something more dangerous. It remembers. Charity without transparency is a costume change for theft. I had no siren to pull, no badge to flash, only dates, amounts, and names that matched where they shouldn't. For people like me. The ones whose stories get written for them. Paper is a weapon that doesn't raise its voice. It just points, clearly, and does not look away. The page looked harmless. Pastel logo in the header, a smile baked into the font. Somewhere beneath that cheerfulness was a link almost embarrassed of itself, terms and policies. I clicked. The screen reshaped into a narrow column of patience, paragraphs stacked like bricks, headings that sounded like the opposite of comfort, fraud and abuse. Misrepresentation, disbursement integrity. It felt like stepping into a courthouse where the only sound is your own shoes. I read the way you hold your breath underwater. The sentences were built like scaffolding, in our sole discretion, upon a good faith belief. We may suspend, freeze, or refund, in whole or in part. There it was, unflinching if a campaign contains false statements or misrepresents a beneficiary, the platform may freeze funds and initiate refunds. Not a maybe dressed up as mercy. A can and will, if asked the right way and shown the right things. I pictured Jasmine's dashboard with its green checkmark, payout, completed, and the masked account number that wasn't mine. The policy didn't care about family dinners or who shared whose blood. It cared about the arrangement of facts and whether money traveled along them truthfully. I kept scrolling, past a paragraph about prohibited conduct. That could have been a mirror if mirrors printed dates and dollar signs, to a section almost no one visits on purpose. Report a campaign. It asked for what the internet rarely requires, proof. Provide documentation of identity and relationship to the beneficiary. Provide evidence of your medical need, ELS invoices, treatment plans, appointment confirmations. Provide bank statements showing absence of disbursement. Provide screenshots of the campaign, organizer communications, and any updates claiming disbursement. The checklist read like an invitation to stop pleading and start presenting. I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it the way detectives name walls in movies RTRAIL. Inside, I began to make order. PDF of the bank statements Marco had printed, each page stamped with dates that refused to be argued with. Scans of the biopsy referral, the pre-op consult, the invoice with its tidy columns and their unkind totals. Screenshots of the fundraiser's headline, the comments, the jubilant "we did it" caption, rocket emoji and all. The platform's email confirming what my accounts already knew. I dragged in the forwarded update from a donor, and the photograph of my DMV face that had been repurposed into a plea. I added a note to myself in bold Tamaluni. On a sheet of paper, I drew a line and labeled it with fax day 1 campaign launches. Day 3 disbursement initiated. Day 4 disbursement completed. Day 5 no deposit to me. Small credits from Jasmine. The work steadied me. Rage is a loud companion, paper is quiet and tireless. I printed out the policy page and took a pen to it like a student underlining the heart of a text: freeze funds. Refund donors. Misrepresentation. The words didn't hug, they held. The platform will cooperate with law enforcement. Beneath that, a sentence that felt personal without ever saying my name. We protect donors and intended beneficiaries. Protect, a verb I had not felt aimed my way in weeks. On the report page, the last requirement waited like a dare disguised as courtesy. Explain, in your own words, what happened. I let my fingers hover over the keys and realized it wasn't that I lacked the words. It was that I finally had the scaffolding to hang them on. The rules had always been there, buried under the confetti of updates and the heat of family panic. They were not a cudgel, they were a bridge. People think justice is a temperament. It is, more often, a filing system. You stack what's true until it can hold weight, then you step onto it. I attached the documents one by one, each click an unglamorous courage. When the upload bar reached the end, and the cursor changed back to a hand, I felt something I hadn't since Sunday. The sense that I was not at the mercy of someone else's version of me. The rules exist. The question is whether you will use them, even when the person you must name shares your holidays. I pressed submit. The page thanked me in the neutral tone bureaucracy uses when it means business. In the quiet that followed, my house felt less like a waiting room and more like a place where things could happen on purpose. Politeness is a key you try first, even when you suspect the lock has been changed. I drafted the email with the steadiness of someone measuring medicine. Hi, Jasmine. Thank you for setting up the campaign and for caring. Because people are donating in my name, I need to reconcile amounts raised and disbursed. Please send the disbursement confirmations, the recipient account details, and a simple ledger of expenses to date. Happy to review together. With love, Aunt Evelyn. I reread it twice, trimming any word that sounded like accusation, then clicked send and listened to the small hush a house makes after courage leaves it. Her reply arrived in minutes, short enough to fit in a throat. Please don't make this a big deal. You're going to tear the family apart. Everyone's just trying to help. The phrase landed with the tired weight of a handed down ultimatum. In our family lexicon, don't make this a big deal translates to don't ask for proof. I felt the old urge to rummage through my tone for softness, but paper had already taught me a better posture. I answered with attachments. The bank statements with their clean, argument-proof columns, the platform's policy page with freeze and refund underlined, the email that used the word completed for a journey money had taken without me. Jasmine. I wrote, this is not about blame. It's about accuracy and respect, for donors and for me. Please provide the payout confirmation and the last 4 digits of the recipient account within 24 hours. If you prefer, we can sit with Mom and go through it together. I am also submitting documentation to the platform. Thank you. I added a kindness at the end, in case we both needed one to hold. I know this is overwhelming. Facts will help. The day stretched itself thin. I washed the cups. I sorted the pillbox. I walked to the mailbox and back without remembering the walk. When I sat again, the cursor blinked like a metronome keeping time for a song I didn't want to sing. Her next message didn't come to me first. It arrived as a forward from my cousin Lan. No subject line, just 3 keystrokes you should see. The thread unfurled beneath, jagged like a wire pulled from a wall. At the top, Jasmine had written to a friend, "Not to me lol, my aunt is going crazy about ledgers. I already withdrew as soon as it hit. Had to cash out fast so we don't miss the window." A smiling tear emoji followed, the modern hieroglyph for "it's fine because I'm laughing." Below that, her friend replied, "Ong, you're smart. Platforms freeze stuff all the time." The sentence felt like a hand patting a grenade. A moment later, almost as if the universe wanted me to watch the choreography, another email from Jasmine slid into my inbox, this one addressed to me at last, working on it. "Please stop emailing people and making this look bad." I sat with both messages open, the way you set two photographs side by side to see who's related to whom. In one, I was the problem; in the other, a deadline had been met with speed that wore worry like perfume. The words "cash out fast" glowed on the screen, as if someone had traced them with a finger that didn't think I would ever read. I forwarded the friend, thread back to Jasmine without commentary, only the practical line that felt like a handrail: "Please send the documents requested by 5 p.m. today." Attaching again platform policy on misrepresentation and disbursements. I will be including this thread in my report. For a long minute, no sound, just the refrigerator's low sermon and a bird testing the gutter outside. Then my phone buzzed with a final, desperate pivot. "I was going to give it to you. You don't understand how these things work. Why can't you trust me?" I looked at the paper taped under the magnet, at the neat dates and sums that refused to perform, and felt the answer bloom with a clarity that made my hands steady. Trust is not a weather system, it's a ledger. You balance it with proof. I wrote to her one last time that day: "Respect comes from transparency. Silence grows lies. I am still your aunt. I am also the person whose name you borrowed. Send the documents." The house settled around the click of send. No triumph, only alignment. When power is lopsided, paper is the weaker person's sword. It doesn't slash, it points. And once you point, it is astonishing what stops pretending not to be seen. Hospitals have their own weather: recycled air, overcast lighting, the hush of bad news treading softly. I took a number at Patient Financial Services and waited under a TV with captions marching like soldiers. When it was my turn, a woman with a cardigan the color of old coins asked for my ID and a smile I didn't have. "I'll need itemized statements," I said, "for the consults, tests, and anything scheduled. Also the explanation of benefits, if you have them." I surprised myself by sounding like someone who knew the alphabet of bureaucracy by heart. She printed until the machine sighed. Pages collated into rubber, banded stacks: facility fee, pathology, imaging, cardiology consult. Line items with codes that look like license plates. At the pharmacy window, I asked for receipts on every fill. Beta blockers, antiemetics. A sleeping pill I'd used like a life preserver on the worst nights. The scheduler at the clinic printed my follow-up appointments on thin paper that curled in my hand. I walked out with a small archive. Back home, I spread the papers on the table in the order of a day: triage to discharge, pills to pillow. The fundraiser's thermometer, glossy, cheerful, had crossed into 5 figures while I was standing under the hospital's fluorescent sky. My own invoices told a plainer story: amount billed, insurance adjustment, patient responsibility, payments received $1, zeros that didn't blink. I made columns. I added totals with the slow care of a person building a bridge. Then I opened my banking app for the liturgy. I already knew: no deposits from the platform, no mysterious credits wearing the right names. The math didn't merely fail to match. It refused to live on the same page. Charity was pooling somewhere that never touched the bill with my name on it. The printer hummed again, gentler now. Copies for the folder on my desk labeled Père Turiel. I tucked in a note that read like a verdict without the robe: funds raised to funds received. The equal sign looked like a cross out. The emails began as a trickle. A subject line from a Sunday school teacher we gave: "Did you receive?" She attached a screenshot of her donation confirmation, date and time stamped like tiny witnesses. Then a neighbor I only waved to, forwarding a credit card statement with the platform's charge ringed in red. "Use if helpful. Happy to vouch," she wrote. A retired nurse from church sent her receipt and added, "I can speak to why I gave, because I believed it would pay your bills." Their messages felt like hands on my back, steadying me across a narrow beam. I asked permission to include their documents in my report to the platform. Every yes arrived quickly, as if people were relieved to be useful beyond clicking a button. I built a new subfolder, Arbeitet C, and slid each file into place, labeling them with names I'd learned again in this strange classroom humanity. My lamb, Mr. Dahalis Unit 2B. The climax of my private investigation was almost indecently quiet. A one-page summary, bullet points instead of adjectives, total raised per campaign, total received by beneficiary per bank, hospital balance due per statements. I added a footnote that felt like a closing argument. No payments posted to provider from campaign funds. I attached the summary to my open ticket with the platform's trust and safety team and typed with a steadiness I hadn't felt since the first Sunday link. Please see enclosed hospital invoices, pharmacy receipts, and donor confirmations. These documents demonstrate that funds were raised in my name and disbursed elsewhere. I request an immediate freeze pending review and a refund to donors per your policy on misrepresentation. Before I clicked send, I looked around my small kitchen. Lemon light on the linoleum, a pot beginning to murmur. My life unglamorous and true, waiting to be paid for by the kindness intended for it. The twist was not dramatic, but it was decisive when I told the truth plainly and backed it with paper. People stepped forward. Not gossip, not sides. Just evidence offered like clean water. My story had been borrowed. Now it was being returned line by line. Message communities don't rally around noise, they rally around clarity. When you lay out the facts, receipts, dates, names, the truth stops whispering and takes the stand. Law offices smell like toner and citrus cleaner, a kind of sanitized certainty. On the wall behind Ms. Paddle's desk, degrees in tidy frames kept each other company. And a clock ticked in the tone adults use when they're not kidding. I set my folder on the polished wood between us. It had begun as anger and become a filing system. Hospital invoices, pharmacy slips, donor confirmations, screenshots, the platform's policy with the verbs underlined. Ms. Patel opened the folder with a surgeon's economy. Let's start with the facts, she said. It was the first time all month someone had offered me a sentence without a sigh attached. I told the story chronologically. The way truth behaves best, the Sunday link with my DMV photo, the rising thermometer, the email about disbursement completed to the verified recipient, the bank statements with their unhelpful zeros, the organizer's inbox where cash out fast was a brag dressed as strategy. She listened the way lawyers are paid to, eyes steady, pen rarely moving, as if she could write later, because the important part was that I heard myself now. When I finished, she stacked the pages and squared the corners. "We'll send a demand letter today," she said. The words landed like a gavel I hadn't known I needed. From my office, on letterhead. "We give them a narrow window to do the right thing." She turned her monitor so we shared the same light. The letter grew sentence by sentence, formal and precise where my emails had been human and tired. This firm represents Ms. Evelyn Tran, the intended beneficiary of the campaign. Help Mom get through surgery. Our records show that funds were disbursed to an account not belonging to Ms. Tran. Demand. Within 72 hours of receipt, provide a full accounting, donor list, amounts, disbursement confirmations, recipient account ending in a HRIX, and remit all funds raised to Ms. Tran or to the listed medical providers. Failure to comply will result in immediate civil action for fraud, conversion, unjust enrichment, and injunctive relief, and referral to the platform's trust and safety and appropriate authorities. Preservation notice. Do not alter or delete campaign pages, updates, emails, or financial records. Spoliation will be pursued. She added a neat parenthetical exhibits AH and began labeling the pieces of my life as proof. A. Bank statements. B. Platform email. C. Hospital invoices. E. Pharmacy receipts. F. Donor confirmations. G. Organizer email thread. The policy page with freeze and refund highlighted. It felt like being lifted onto a bridge built from the very planks I'd been carrying. The letter goes to your niece, her mother, and anyone listed as an admin. Ms. Patel said, certified mail and email, and, she looked up, the twist arriving soft as common sense. We submit the same packet directly to the platform's trust and safety from counsel. They move faster when they hear from lawyers. We'll request an emergency freeze and begin the refund process for donors. I already opened a ticket, I said, almost apologizing for being early to my own rescue. Good, she said. Now we add weight. She printed on thick paper that made a sound when stacked, slid each letter into an envelope, and pressed return receipts into my hand like small green shields. I signed where she pointed, my name looking steadier than it had a week ago. What if they accuse me of tearing the family apart? I asked, because the words had already been thrown like dishes. She didn't flinch. Families tear themselves, she said. You're asking for reconciliation with the truth. Let the paper do the arguing. Back home. The house met me with its ordinary music, the kettle's sigh, the piano lid settling into place. My inbox chimed with copies, demand letter sent, trust and safety submission, received. The clock on my stove began counting the 72 hours as if time and justice had agreed on a choreography. The peace I felt wasn't triumph. It was alignment, the rightness of hearing my story told in a voice that institutions recognize. I had been whispering through a keyhole. Now the door had a nameplate. Message. Rights don't have to shout when they have representation. Sometimes the difference between being dismissed and being heard is a letter on the right paper, carrying the facts you've already gathered, finally speaking in a language power respects. The upload portal blinked like a patient machine that had seen worse. Under the heading Trust and Safety, Evidence Intake, there was a tidy set of boxes: identity, medical documentation, bank statements, campaign screenshots, correspondence. I fed it my life one file at a time, the way you feed a nervous animal, slowly, palm open. First the ID, then the hospital invoices stamped patient responsibility, 0.100 paid. Then the pharmacy slips with dates that lined up like vertebrae. I attached the PDF of bank statements Marco had printed. The platform's own email that said disbursement completed to the verified recipient, and the thread where Jasmine wrote cash out fast. Each file name felt like a sentence. E-Tran Banky Jane Mar. PDF Oncology Invoice 02. PDF Campaign Update Payout Ping. I dragged in screenshots of the fundraiser, the headline, the photo I hadn't consented to. The progress bar performing generosity on a stage I couldn't step onto. Finally, the donor confirmations, each ringed in red. Each with a timestamp like a small witness willing to take the stand. When I pressed submit, a case number appeared, impersonal and miraculous. The confirmation email landed before I could exhale. We received your documentation. Our team is reviewing and may suspend disbursements during investigation. May, a hinge word, but a hinge nonetheless. Miss Paddle forwarded her version of the packet from counsel within the hour. Letterhead and exhibits A through H. The tone that tells software and humans alike the difference between noise and record. Duplicative is good here, she'd said. They need to trip over the truth no matter which door they open. By afternoon, a second email arrived from the platform, the subject line acquiring a pulse, preliminary review, action taken. I read it aloud to the quiet kitchen because paper wants witnesses. Based on your documentation, we have temporarily frozen the campaign's payout feature pending organizer response. We have requested additional verification from the organizer, including proof of beneficiary consent and disbursement authorization, and clarification of inconsistencies in the organizer profile. The words frozen and inconsistencies steadied me the way handrails do in a moving train. I refreshed the campaign page. At the top, the little thermometer held at the same degree. Suddenly shy. The comments paused their cascade. A gray banner had slid under the title like a cloud update under review. No trumpet. No siren, just the soft click of a door stopping mid-swing. The twist arrived in the language of bureaucracy, clean as a bone. A third email, addressed to both of us. Cocking a mailbox with the solemn name compliance. Listed. Discrepancies noted. The organizer's bank account last four didn't match the beneficiary info. The organizer profile claimed a different relationship than the one printed on my birth certificate. Dates in the updates suggested procedures I hadn't scheduled yet. Please provide consent documentation from the beneficiary, signed authorization for disbursement, and receipts correlating campaign expenditures to beneficiary invoices within 48 hours. I imagined Jasmine staring at the same bullet points, cheeks lit by a laptop that had briefly felt like a power outlet. The internet is generous with applause. It is less generous with reconciliation. You can charm a crowd. You cannot charm a ledger. I wrote back with the thing institutions understand best: sequence and citation. See attached biopsy referral, pre-op consult scheduled for next month. Hospital ledger showing balance due, donor confirmations, bank statements reflecting no incoming disbursements. I have not authorized any person to receive or withdraw funds on my behalf. Ms. Patel added a paragraph from counsel, calmer than justice and twice as firm. Please preserve all records. Our client is prepared to cooperate with law enforcement. In the evening, I stood at the window while the neighborhood arranged itself into squares of warm light. The campaign sat very still in its browser tab, a stage with the curtain lowered. For the first time since the link appeared on Sunday, I didn't feel like I was chasing my own name down a hallway. The platform wasn't a god. It was a door with a lock. And locks have keys when you learn where they keep them. The next morning, a donor wrote, "Whatever you need me to confirm, I will. I gave for you." I slid her message into the folder labeled Donor Evidencie and understood that the simplest form of faith is paperwork paired with a promise. No one clapped. Nothing exploded. But a system built to move money had paused long enough to ask who it belonged to. Transparency stands when someone leans on it. Lies fold when you press. How dare you slander us? Claire's cousin spits the words before the coffee cools. We're in my living room because neutral ground doesn't exist in families. Everywhere belongs to someone. Coats slouch over the backs of chairs. A casserole sweats in a glass dish no one asked for. The dog hair I missed with the vacuum glows in a bar of winter light like it came to witness. Josh stands near the mantel pretending to examine a framed photo, as if memory might vote with him. Claire hovers by the doorway, hands in her sleeves the way she did at 12, when she wanted to disappear without leaving. I had called it a family meeting, which is a prayer disguised as a calendar invite. I pour coffee into mismatched mugs, and no one reaches for sugar because sweetness would read as surrender. The accusations arrive in a chorus. Why would you file reports? Why embarrass us? Why make it sound criminal when it's family? Because facts don't know who we are, I say, and my voice is steadier than I deserve. I set a manila envelope on the table, the kind that looks official because it is. Inside, the printouts Ramirez's paralegal prepared months of transactions, names marching in columns that don't fatigue. I slide out the top stack and square it with the edge of the table, the way teachers do with tests before handing them back. Let's look together. Silence arrives like weather. I fan the pages so even the cousins who swear they don't get numbers can read. Line items in neat black type. Brookview Care and Rehab, auto draft, mortgage, Brookview Lane. And then the polite stranger that kept using my front door without knocking. ACH debit, Suite Fay 215. Each entry dates itself without shame. The fountain pen I brought in case we needed to sign anything lies parallel to the totals like a runway. Josh stops, pretending to be interested in the photo. Claire's mouth flattens. The room goes still the way water does just before the truth breaks the surface. I didn't slander you, I say. I documented what happened. A chair creaks. My sister-in-law clears her throat, then clears it again, because the first sound is the kind you make when you think you can swallow what's coming. They asked me, she says softly, not looking at anyone. Months ago. To borrow my secondary account, the one I keep for the church fundraiser. Said it would just be for a while, to move some things around. They used my mailbox at the UPS store too. Box 214. She closes her eyes as if numbers can't see you if you play dead. Claire's head snaps toward her. Aunt Linda, she warns, but the warning is late. We all heard the sentence that changes rooms. I thought it was harmless, Aunt Linda whispers. We all do little workarounds. I didn't think about where the money began. Where the money began. It began with my signature, months of. Just until it's easier. Which is what families call it, when they build bridges out of other people's names. The printouts lie between us like X-rays shadow telling on bone. Josh says, we were drowning, and for a moment the floor softens under all our feet. I see the cracked tile in their kitchen, the coupon drawer, the way people stand straighter when they owe more than posture can hold. I also see my wristband, my room under fluorescent mercy, the mailbox I didn't live at receiving news that belonged to me. I'm not here to prosecute Thanksgiving, I say quietly, but I won't keep bleeding so no one has to look at the cut. I tap the totals with the pen's cap. This is what left. This is what returns. The rest, we can talk about when the ledger stops lying. Claire's eyes are wet, not with theater, but with the brine grief brings when it realizes it has a body. Wish should have asked, she whispers. Yes, I say. You should have. Maybe I would have said yes. Maybe I would have said no. Either way, it would have been true. The room exhales. Someone reaches for a napkin, someone else for the casserole lid, as if warmth might cover what heat cannot. Aunt Linda looks at me with a sorrow that isn't performance. I'm sorry, she says. I'll tell the bank what I did. I'll fix what I can. The truth hurts, the way antiseptic does sharp, clean, not negotiable. But hurt is not the same as harm. Hurt, applied right, keeps a wound from becoming a story you carry for the rest of your life. As we gather the papers back into the envelope, I feel the room tilt. An inch. No more, toward the work of healing, which is just honesty wearing shoes. The numbers don't forgive. People do. Sometimes the map to that forgiveness looks like a spreadsheet under a kitchen light. I begin with the only sentence that can hold this without breaking. Thank you. The cursor blink a small metronome as I stack the rest behind it. I brew tea, line up the donor list. PTA moms with flour still under their nails. The church treasurer who counts by humming. The man from the rec league who always signs with a smiley face. And I write to them the way you speak in a sanctuary, softly, clearly, without pointing. Thank you for your generosity to our community fund. I'm writing to update you on a routine review of transactions. An independent accountant is reconciling the books. No names, no blame. If you notice anything odd on your end, duplicate receipts, unfamiliar memos, please reply to me and to our counsel. Every dollar is being accounted for, and we will share the final report. I keep the verbs careful: review, reconcile, share. I do not say theft. I do not say betrayal. I say what is true and provable, because I have learned truth stands up even when you whisper it. I BCC everyone, no reply, all storms today, and attach the 2 clean things we own: a timeline and a checklist. I sign with my full name. Like a promise I'm not hiding behind the weather. When I hit send, the kettle clicks off as if the house approves. 5 minutes later, my inbox feels like rain finds gutters. Mrs. Paddle replies first, scan of a thank you note she wrote on PTA stationery last fall. Plus the deposit slip she kept, because paper wants company. The church treasurer sends a ledger page with her tidy cursive in the margin: bake sale, choir robes, okay. Coach D emails screenshots of 2 processing fees. He says looked wrong at the time, but he let slide because we let too much slide when the kids are smiling. By noon, my living room is a sorting floor. I print their notes, clip them into stacks, and date the top right corner like a librarian. People do what they can. Small businesses forward auto receipts. A teacher offers to testify about how the UPS box number changed on an invoice, and something in my stomach changed with it. An old man drops an envelope in my mailbox with a single line: if you need me. I'm the one who sits third pew left, as if witness could be described by geography. The emails begin to arrive in a different key. I'll speak on the record if needed. Use my name, you aren't alone. It is not a chorus of anger so much as a choir of steadiness, and the sound moves through me until my hands stop shaking. I forward each willing witness to Ramirez with subject lines that read like yeses. At 3:17 p.m., a new subject line glows: inquiry, community fund story confidential. A reporter from the local paper writes that she's received tips about irregularities in small dollar fundraising, and asks if I would talk under conditions that protect anonymity. She is respectful in the way people are when they know they're knocking on a door the wind has already tried. I call Ramirez. He listens without interrupting, then names the rules like he's laying out tools for a delicate repair. We speak off the record until ground rules are set. We share documents, not conclusions. We protect donor privacy. We do not name individuals who have not been named by the record. You don't owe the public your grief, he says. Only your facts. In the evening, I sit at the kitchen table beneath the pendant light that makes numbers honest, and I answer the reporter. Yes, with conditions. We'll provide ledgers and timelines. The story is about safeguarding generosity, not humiliating anyone. I attach the checklist. I press send. I think of Aunt Linda's confession, how shame and relief can live in the same sentence. How the town knows how to sue itself after a storm if you hand it needle and thread instead of a siren. Reputation, I decide, isn't rebuilt by shouting on a corner. It's mended at a table with tea rings and paper clips, with gratitude that doesn't flinch and evidence that doesn't blink. When the porch light clicks on by itself, the room turns gentler. I stack the replies in a neat pile, label it in black ink, and write a last line in my notebook: kindness first. Paper next. That's how we get our name back. The subject line lands like a gavel: urgent, campaign activity frozen. Action required. It's from the fundraising platform. The one with cheerful fonts and photographs of hands touching through hardship. I open it at the kitchen table, where the pendant light turns everything honest. The email is polite in the way hospital gowns are polite. Open in the back, drafty where you wish it weren't. We have temporarily suspended disbursements to the campaign. Help Nana's hospital bills. And the linked receiving account pending verification. The word suspended sits in the middle of the paragraph, like a stop sign that finally remembered its job. I refresh the page to be sure my eyes haven't translated hope into bureaucracy. The campaign tile still smiles back. My photograph from last winter. The one where I'm holding a pie as if gluten could fix anything. But now there's a gray banner at the top under review. The coffee cools at my elbow. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck sighs as if agreeing with the decision. A second email follows, then a third. The platform's compliance team thanks me for bringing concerns to our attention and outlines what happens next. Within 48 hours, the campaign organizer must submit 1 itemized hospital invoices, 2 proof of direct payment to providers, 3 the written explanation of any transfers to personal or third-party accounts. My heartbeat locates a rhythm. 48 hours is a number I can hold in my palm. Ramirez calls before I can call him. He's already read the emails. I looped him in because paper wants company. This is the right tone, he says. Firm, not theatrical. They've frozen the receiving account too. No more withdrawals. Even if the post disappears. I ask because magic tricks are a family specialty. Deletion isn't a time machine, he says. The platform has immutable logs, versions, edits, IP addresses, disbursement history. The internet forgets the color of your coat, it remembers the route you took. As if on cue, my phone lights up with a screenshot from Nora, who, like all good nurses, is also an information highway. The campaign page has gone dark, the smiling photograph is gone, the headline now reads Ford and 4. My granddaughter must have pressed the button labeled delete, the way you swat a mosquito and call it justice. The platform replies to my forwarded screenshot within minutes. We maintain archived snapshots and transaction ledgers regardless of public status. The organizer's ability to remove content does not affect our record keeping. There's a calm to the sentence I want to pour into a glass and drink. They ask me to forward any donor messages, and the folder I've been building. Thank use receipts. A PTA treasurer's neat ledger suddenly looks less like a scrapbook and more like testimony. At hour 4, the organizer writes a short note to the platform. We're busy. Nana is fine. This is all a misunderstanding. At hour 6, the compliance officer leans on the word documentation the way you lean on a railing at the top of stairs. At hour 9, the withdrawal history arrives in my inbox like a photograph that keeps showing the same stranger. A series of transfers labeled reimbursement, landing in a personal account and then stepping sideways to an LLC with a mailbox number my family taught me to recognize in my bones. By evening, the kitchen has turned twilight blue. I make tea because we do what we can control. The clock hums. Across town, someone is ordering takeout with money meant to buy gauze. I think of my granddaughter's fingers on a keyboard and the part of me that wants to sweep her timeline clean, tuck her into a smaller story where she didn't learn this from people who should have known better. But mercy is not amnesia. Mercy, if it's worth anything, holds hands with evidence. At hour 21, the platform issues a formal notice. Failure to comply within the stated period may result in permanent suspension and referral to appropriate authorities. The tone is sanded smooth, the way you finish wood that will bear weight. Ramirez tells me to sleep. 48 hours is a fence, he says. We planted it. Now let it stand. The internet doesn't forget and justice doesn't sprint. It trains, it hydrates. It shows up the next day wearing the same shoes. I stack the emails by the stove, label the folder in black ink, and let the kettle sing me to bed. The first email arrives just after 8, when the kettle clicks off and the house decides to be kind. Subject refund initiated. Help Nana's hospital bills. The platform's logo sits at the top like a promise someone finally intends to keep. We are processing refunds to the original payment methods for all donors, it reads, with status updates to follow. Below that, a neat list transaction IDs, amounts down to the cent, a timeline that doesn't bluff, 10 business days. I print it, and the paper lands in my palm with the weight of something returning. A second email follows like a twin with better posture. Partial refunds completed. Names I know from PTA rosters and church potlucks appear in tidy columns. Mrs. Paddle, Coach D. The choir treasurer with the ledger, perfect handwriting. I picture their kitchens as they read the water rings on tables, the fruit bowls growing brave again. For months we held our breath and called it faith. Now the air moves. At 10, the apology lands. Subject to our donors. We're sorry. It's addressed to me and to everyone who ever slipped a small bill into a bake sale jar. The organizer, my granddaughter, still so new to the adultness of money, writes in a voice that stumbles where it ought to. We mishandled funds and communications. We are cooperating with the platform's review. Refunds are underway. We are sorry for the confusion and hurt we caused. No conditional verbs. No scaffolding of excuse. The paragraph is thinner than grief, but it stands. My inbox becomes its own neighborhood watch. Replies from donors, thank you for the update. We're with you. Tell that girl to learn the difference between help and taking. I forward everything to Ramirez, file copies under a folder I label returns in my best black ink, and pour fresh tea, because a person can be both meticulous and human. Just after noon, the twist I didn't expect: subject notice of fee reversal. The platform's compliance team writes in the tone carpenters, use when the beam is finally level. We have waived and reversed platform fees associated with this campaign. Reason code misrepresentation. The word sits there, square as a block you'd rather pretend isn't part of the house. Below it a ledger line that reads fees, $0 and a credit entry marching the other way. I run my finger under the sentence as if reading to a child. Slow, patient, true. I step outside with the printouts, let September press its cool mouth to my forehead. And think of the small economies that keep town stitch: a coach's pizza party, the choir robe hemmed straight, a neighbor who brings soup because solids feel like arrogance on certain nights. Those people sent dollars like prayers. Today, the prayers come back as receipts. Ramirez calls. This is what accountability looks like when it behaves, he says, which is as close to celebration as he ever gets on the phone. We talk witnesses, we talk timelines. We talk about giving grief a room without letting it run the house. Save the apology, he adds. People change in the direction of the paper they sign. By evening, the light over my table draws a soft circle around the stack: refunds, fee reversal, apology. Somewhere in town, a teenager is deleting a post she wrote with adult intent and child understanding. The platform keeps the archive anyway. The internet forgets your caption. It does not forget your path. I open my notebook and write a sentence I want to remember when the next complicated kindness arrives. Fairness is what happens when wrong is named out loud and then made smaller by the work of repair. No trumpets. No spectacle. Just money going home and a letter that admits it took the wrong road. The house settles. The faucet in the kitchen doesn't drip. I breathe. Justice, when it chooses its best shoes, is quiet enough to hear tulips open. Ramirez lays the proposal between the salt shaker and the stack of printed emails, as if law can be served family style. Litigation will take a year you don't owe to stress, he says, fingertip on the top line. We can resolve this in weeks. The kitchen pendant turns the paper into a small stage. The refrigerator hums its steady note while the rest of us learn how to. Claire sits with her palms flat. My granddaughter has her hands stuffed into her sleeves, the posture of a child trying to be a pocket. On the document: public apology. Retraction, restitution, no new campaigns without oversight. It reads like a map out of a storm if you believe maps can be mercy. We gather on Zoom so signatures can find us where we are. The platform's refunds are in motion, donors have receipts. The word misrepresentation has been recorded in a ledger that doesn't blush. Ramirez shares his screen settlement memorandum. Community fund matter. Paragraphs in the careful font of accountability. My granddaughter must publish an apology in the same places she asked for money. Post, pin, and keep it there for 90 days. She will email a letter to each donor, not a template, but words she wrote and will stand beside. She will make monthly payments into escrow for 12 months, not as punishment, but as the cost of repair, postage, notices, administrative time, and a modest sum to underwrite a transparency micro grant for choir robes and rec league pizza. The things she said she was protecting. Claire and Josh initial the fee line. They already know the lawyer's hours, the certified mail, the paper that earned its weight. When it's her turn, my granddaughter clears her throat and lifts her pen. I am sorry, she reads, and this time the words don't try to wear grown-up clothes. They come as themselves. She signs once, then again on the line that promises no fundraising in the family name without prior written approval. On the last page she writes the date, small and careful, like a person learning to steady a hand over a hot stove. Before we end the call, Ramirez opens a second document titled Family Support and Transparency Rules, not court-ordered, but adopted like a rescue that belongs to all of us now. We vote in our squares. A single shared inbox for donations. A 2-signature rule for disbursements over $100. Receipts uploaded within 24 hours. A public ledger link updated weekly. No P.O. boxes without written notice. A designated treasurer who isn't a beneficiary. A cooling-off period before posting any plea. An annual mini-audit by the church treasurer who hums while she counts. Claire suggests we add a rule that any emergency ends in 30 days unless renewed by a vote. My granddaughter says, and we ask first. The clause none of us thought needed writing until it did. We adopt the rules and the minutes together, our names forming a tidy column that looks, finally, like kinship meaning to last. The screen drops me back into my kitchen, where the tulips open another millimeter and the kettle hosts its quiet boil. I slide the signed memorandum into the folder labeled Returns, tuck the new rules behind it, and feel the house align. Hinges oiled, latches catching. Justice doesn't always arrive as thunder, sometimes it is minutes taken and rules kept. Fences built so the garden grows back instead of getting eaten again. We did not choose spectacle, we chose signatures. We did not choose exile. We chose a path that makes room for repair and remembers where the ditch is. Paper doesn't love you, but it will hold you if you hold it back. Tonight, that is enough. The piece runs at 6 on a Tuesday, slotted between weather and a story about the high school band. They keep my name out of it. Gray my hands when the camera shows how paper looks under a kitchen pendant. The reporter's voice is careful, the way you carry a sleeping child. In a review of small dollar fundraising, documents obtained by our newsroom were decisive. The papers spoke for themselves. A close-up of ledger lines, a scan of a revocation stamped clean, the kind of emails that have dates for bones, no villains named, no hero music, just nouns, refunds, reversals, reconciliations, stacked like bricks until a wall stands. I watch from my couch with the sound low, as if loud would make it less true. On screen, a donor's hand points to a receipt, the check mark like a pulse. A compliance officer explains, immutable logs, without smirking. The anchor nods once, the way people do when something landed where it should. Then the forecast takes over and promises rain that may or may not arrive. The phone buzzes first with Ed from 2 houses down saw the segment. Proud of you. Then Nora, who sends a string of tulip emojis, and the sentence truth looks good on you. The mailbox coughs up a note written in pencil. We always believed you, Marion. No return address, just a stamp tilted like a wink. On the community page that once hosted theories about my mind, the moderators pin a post rumors removed. Verified updates only. The thread that used to hiss goes still, as if someone turned off a faucet, and the house remembered how quiet sounds. By noon the doorbell rings with pie from Mrs. Patel, who admits she over-sugars when she's relieved. Coach D drops a folded clipping and a fist bump that lands soft. The choir treasurer brings a stack of choir robe measurements, because planning is faith too. None of them ask for an apology I can't give. They bring presents and, more precious, the absence of suspicion. The air in my kitchen changes lanes. In the stack of mail is an envelope from the hospital, platinum logo tidy in one corner. Inside, a letter in bureaucratic cursive that I read like scripture. This is to confirm that Ms. Marion Cole's patient balance is paid in full via the Independent Patient Assistance Fund administered by hand name redacted, a registered 501(e)(3). We further confirm that no disbursements were received from the community campaign, currently under review, and that all payments were made directly to our billing department per policy. A 0 sits where the debt used to be, quiet and declarative. The letter smells faintly of honor and dignity. I make a copy for my folder labeled Returns and tape the original, just for a day, on the fridge, where the strawberry magnet can earn its keep. When Claire stops by, she reads it twice, cheeks pinking the way they do when feeling and thought collide. Good, she says, and it's not penance or theater, just a small word placed in the center of the table like salt. We talk about Thursday dinner. We do not rehearse old lines. By evening, the station posts the segment online with a caption that doesn't try too hard. Paper trail resolves a neighborhood question. Comments pile up, mostly ordinary. Glad this was handled, proud of our town. I answer none of them. Let the documents reply. Let the refunds keep moving. Let the ledger tell the story I no longer have to. Reputation, I've learned, doesn't return to a trumpet. It walks in behind the truth after the truth has opened the door, sets down its coat, and takes the seat that bears its name. I'll set a plate for it at dinner, not because it's hungry, but because it remembers I am. When you let the facts go ahead of you, the whispers run out of breath trying to keep up. We start with paper, because paper remembers. I print a one-page form and slide it into a stack of clipboards on the kitchen island. At the top, support log. Lines for who, what, why, how much, who approved, where the receipt lives. At the bottom, 2 places for signatures, mine and the designated treasurer's, because even love needs countersignatures. A clear jar holds pens the color of midnight. The pendant light hums, the house looks on like a witness. Claire arrives first, carrying grocery bags and a wary piece. My granddaughter follows, hair in a knot that says she wants to do this right. I point to the clipboards. From now on, I say not unkindly. Any money that leaves or lands does it on a page. We sign, we reconcile. Every month, we make the math tell the same story twice. Josh leans against the counter. Reading aloud, no reimbursements without pre-approval. No for the kids unless we can name the kid in the need. His mouth twists, then straightens. He taps the line about receipts within 24 hours. Fair. We test the system with something small. Claire offers to pick up my new blood pressure cuff. She fills the form, purpose, estimate, vendor, signs, and hands me the pen. Ink clicks like a tiny gavel. The jar for receipts gets its first folded slip, fluttering in as if relieved to be wanted. At dinner, we practice the harder part language. May I represent you? My granddaughter asks, cheeks pink, to call the insurance. To schedule the plumber. She doesn't say again. She doesn't have to. Ask first. I answer. And if I say yes, write it down. She nods. And for the first time, I see the woman she's trying to grow into, not the child who thought good intentions could count for math. Word travels. Aunt Linda drops by with a plate of brownies and a suggestion. Church keeps a reconciliation binder, she says, patting her tote. Tabs for months. A checklist on the inside cover. You want it? We do. She shows us how to label income streams, how to staple receipts to ledger pages, how to circle anything that smells like a story trying to get away with itself. The next week, the community center hosts a financial transparency workshop. Folding chairs. A projector, coffee that forgives nothing. I choose a seat on the aisle. My granddaughter sits beside me, notebook open, date at the top. The presenter is the church treasurer with the humming habit. She teaches like she's giving away a recipe she perfected over winters. 2 signatures, she says. Public ledger, no P.O. boxes without notice. Pause before posting. When in doubt, wait a day, then ask in daylight. The slide reads, trust loves sunlight. We copy the phrase like extra credit. During Q&A, a teenager in a varsity jacket asks how to tell a friend no without losing the friend. The treasurer answers, say, I love you enough to follow the rules with you. Beside me, my granddaughter underlines it 3 times. Back home, we formalize what we've learned. The family support and transparency rules go inside the binder's front pocket, signed by the people who share my last name and the ones who share my table. We add a standing date, the first Sunday of every month, for a 15-minute reconciliation. Receipts out, ledger balanced. Applause when the numbers line up like chairs after a concert. Later, when the porch light clicks on by itself, I pour chamomile and look at the jars and binders and the neat line of clipboards, how ordinary they are, how quietly radical. I can love you, I think, and still say no. I can love you and ask you to ask. I can love you and hold the pen. Some families build fences to keep things out. We built one to keep love in the yard where it belongs. Bright, tended, and accountable. Boundaries did not shrink us. They gave us room. Love lasts longer when the lines are clear and the weight is shared. The new habit begins with labels. I sit at the kitchen table under the pendant light that turns paper honest and write names that make sense. Bank, escrow, medical, paid, legal, orders, family, rules. The binder clicks shut like a satisfied jaw. I scan, I file. I slide a copy into the safe behind the flower bin and another into a cloud folder with a password only I can remember. My first classroom's mascot, my wedding month, the street where I learned to ride a bike. Receipts tuck into sleeves. The ledger reconciles until the numbers line up like chairs after a concert. It isn't drama. It's a daily flossing of facts. I used to think vigilance meant suspicion. Now it feels like tidying, like wiping the counter until it stops pretending there's nothing sticky there. At 9:17 a.m., An email arrives from the fundraising platform with a subject line that feels like a hand-extended palm. Up Invitation Community Advisory Roundtable on Abuse Prevention. They thank me for the way I documented instead of shouted. Would I join a small group to help them build better guardrails? I pour coffee and say yes. On the call, their engineers show me the innards of kindness, flagging patterns, friction prompts that ask, do you have permission? 2. Signature disbursements for campaigns run, behalf of, a default public ledger donors can view, a pause that forces organizers to sit with their ask for 24 hours before the page goes live. Asking people to wait is not punishment, I say. It's what love looks like when money is about to be involved. They take notes. Someone reads back my sentence as if it were a spec. After the meeting, the story wants air. I open a blank document and title it the way a bruise names itself. They used my illness to fundraise, so I brought the statements. It isn't a scream. It's a template with a pulse, a checklist for donors, questions for families, links to the rules we adopted, sample language for no that doesn't turn into exile. I describe the wristband, the ledger, the day a faucet learned the difference between on and off. I leave out names. I leave in verbs. When I post it to the community board, I expect the usual handful of polite thumbs. Instead, it travels. A librarian messages to say she printed it for a bulletin board. A Little League treasurer tags it as required reading. A stranger writes, this gave me the words to set a boundary without burning a bridge. The thread blooms with stories I recognize by their bones. The hospital sends a final letter to close the loop. Balance 0, patient assistance verified. Donations not used, and I slide it into the medical, paid sleeve where it belongs. Claire stops by with oranges in silence. We stand at the counter. Peel spirals piling like small truths. I read your piece, she says finally. It didn't hurt. It wasn't meant to, I say. Repair, I'm learning. Doesn't flinch from light. By evening, the house is itself, tulips opening another millimeter, the refrigerator faithful, the binder heavier in the way right things have weight. I tape a new reminder to the fridge. First Sunday reconcile, and circle next Thursday's dinner because ordinary is still my favorite miracle. If love is going to last here, it will wear name tags, truth, transparency, consent, receipts. We like to say trust is earned. Maybe it's also kept by check marks and countersignatures, by pauses and plain speech, by letting the facts walk ahead of you so rumors run out of breath. I turn the faucet on to rinse the cutting board. I turn it off because I can. This is how you begin clean the heart warm, the paper squared, the door unlocked from the inside. I'm Marian Cole, 62. Once, my name was a spare key anyone could borrow. Now it sits warm in my palm, teeth facing outward. The faucet is off, the ledger quiet. The house finally breathing like a chest after a long-held note. Yet the doorbell knows Thursday is coming, and dinners have a way of deciding who we are. If a paper trail can resurrect dignity, what resurrects trust? A signature, a silence, or the moment you say no and mean love anyway. I've learned that truth walks ahead of you, and when it does, whispers run out of breath trying to keep up. I'm still here, keeper of receipts, pourer of tea, woman with a pen that writes straight even when the hand remembers shaking. Come back for the next page. The ordinary night might not stay ordinary. If this echoed somewhere in you, like subscribe and ring the bell. Tell me below. If someone asked to borrow your signature, where would you draw your line? And what would you do when the mail started arriving at their door?